Hello, everybody, and welcome to our review of Eminem's Encore. My name is HSR.
I am your lady friend Bonnie.
Okay, this is how we do things over here. No, there's energy.
Starting off pretty gloomy.
It's Encore. So we go through the albums track by track. In fact, behind that suit reviews, Eminem is our most frequented searched for thing associated with Behind That Suit.
Thank you, guys.
It's a good chance that a few of you coming here are gonna know who the fuck we are at this point. So for those of you who are new, we're going to go through the album track by track, give our thoughts and opinions on each and every one of them. We're going to just let you know what sticks out to us and just kind of comment on it. We're not necessarily experts, but we are people who do this time and time again, week over week, just talking about the albums and learning.
At what point do we become experts? You tell us.
We'll never be experts. That's my perception on this. We'll just keep learning.
You can
forever.
never learn enough, right? That is true.
We didn't grow up with hip hop since like 8 years old. I don't know how I could be an expert. What I can be is a student of the culture and learn. And
I can tell you a lot about the Beatles, though.
And as a part of a student of digital marketing, it's clear that our Eminem reviews outperform most other things because people seem to want to watch long reviews about Eminem and go through it. Probably because most of us have listened to a lot of Eminem.
And we all share the same passion.
Anyway, so that's what we do here. We go through the albums and we talk about it. Today it will be Eminem's Encore. That's going to be our full album review.
Yeah.
And before we get into that, we do want to share our favorite comment of last week's video, which was on the Delinquent Habits Merry-Go-Round, which is a patron request. And
Pretty
on that
solid.
video, we got a cool comment from Lindell Williams. I didn't want to grade this one because I think the scores were right, but that some of the songs were made to suit the Spanish-speaking audience. I think the production was pretty good, and I would have liked the album more if I understood more Spanish, but I think the album still has replay value. Great review. Now, I like that comment because it got me thinking, do you need to understand the language of the music to even have an opinion on it, or are you able to just listen to it and maybe you don't fully understand what everything is, but you're able to recognize the talent and technique enough?
I think that's an interesting question, actually. Just to kind of, I guess, do a quick little side note. I think it is interesting because, like, as much as like some of the songs off of like the Delinquent Habits album, I couldn't give like full grades to because I was like, well, I don't really know what they're saying, so they could be singing about something that is terrible that I don't agree with, but it sounds good, so it's like it's just kind of like, and is it on me to like figure it out? Well, and I assume it should be, and just one one more thing in terms of like classical music or instrumental type music. You can listen to that from anywhere in the world and you'll kind of get the gist of it. But, like, how come we can't get it when there's, like, lyrics involved?
Well, on the other hand, how come that New Year's Eve song, which is clearly not in English, is just so widely loved and accepted?
It's in Scottish. It's in Scots.
Sure, but it's definitely not in a language I understand.
Like, there's some words that you can kind of understand what they are.
Latin songs that are like church hymns and stuff, so occasionally it's totally fine. I guess, though, like, because, like, it's kind of like if you shut yourself off to the other, and we're going to get to Eminem, I promise. You
We're
can check the description of the video. You'll see when we start. But, like, there's a whole world of music out there, and I think that maybe prior to the internet, like, you would only get exposed to what was kind of available now. But we're at a point where I could go find out what the top 40 songs in German are and go listen to them and expose myself to that culture.
Yeah.
So I think that the actual content of the song is one part of a bigger metric scheme, but when you're really looking at it, you can still, no matter what language, understand if the guy can sing well, if he's rhyming proper, if the flow is dope, if, like, the music is great. And so even if you don't understand the culture, I think that you can still appreciate everything but what the song's about. So I can understand the reservation.
If an artist is a good enough artist, no matter what, even if he's not even speaking language, if he's just talking nonsense, if he's able to convey a feeling by doing that, then he's an amazing artist, and like he should be acclaimed for that. It's kind
But
of
at,
like
the same token, I would say that it would be reckless at that point to comment on what the song's about based on Google Translate and things like that if you don't fully understand the nuance. And maybe you don't want to get behind the full premise, but you can kind of verify what pretty much any song's about with the various Google Translate and its alternatives out there. So at this point, it's pretty straightforward to see that like Eves was saying one shit and the next dude was kind of saying the same thing, but like in Spanish.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, okay, I get the gist of what he's saying. I don't need to know the intricacies to fully appreciate
obviously,
it.
like there was like a flow, and like the topics were similar. It wasn't just like completely different.
But like if it was completely out the blue, and even if I'd never heard anyone with it before, the first thing I would do is find the lyrics online, Google Translate, and get an idea what it's about.
Yep.
So at this point, I think it's something we could all learn. And hell, we'd probably learn a little bits of other languages by doing that. Anyway, though, before we jump into our review, why don't you guys answer that question? Because we want to see how you feel too. That's why I brought it up. I thought it was a super interesting question. Then I got distracted. But let us know what you guys think on that. Do you think you should be in a position to like review shit in other languages and other cultures? And how do you feel about that outside of our typical race norm issues that we would normally think about it? Like, let's pretend that skin color is not in the question and we are talking about, I don't know, we come across a whole new island nobody's ever discovered before. Would it be like appropriate to rate that people's music? That kind of a thing. Let's just go way out of the box on that. Anyway. Before we jump in, special thanks to the patrons Ismail Gadamsi, Linda Williams, yes, he's one of them, Super Old School 1994, and Chris Prado. They're awesome. We'll talk a bit about that at the end, but y'all came here for a particular thing, and it is... Bonnie, why don't you introduce it?
This week we are doing... we're doing a Classic Quest album review of Eminem's Encore, which came out November 12th, 2004.
All right. So typically at this part of the show, we would go into how familiar we are with the artist, but we've done quite a few Eminem reviews, so we're pretty familiar with the artist. I mean, the quick recap is I've been listening to him since I'm 12. Bonnie's probably heard our quick version.
Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to him for a long time. I mean, I didn't, like, at the beginning, I felt like I was more of a fan, and then I kind of trickled away for a little bit, but yeah.
My end, I've heard every album when it dropped, and, multiple times, regardless.
Did you hear this album when it dropped?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a quick sec, but we've done reviews, just in case you guys want to know. This is not even our first review. We've done MMLP, Marshall Mathers LP 1. We've done Slim Shady LP. We've done Infinite. We've
Eminem
done
Show?
The Eminem Show. We've done D12 Devil's Night. We've done Revival, which I fucking love. I really love that album. It's the direction I want Eminem to go personally. We've done Kamikaze. And so we've done a whole bunch of Eminem. And we even touched on the beef with MGK. Yeah. Why? Because anytime we do shit with... Our best video was Kill Shot. Literally, it got like 1,500 views in a day. It broke a record on his channel. So evidently, when we do Eminem content, and I want to touch everything on hip-hop, so we don't do it as often as maybe the sellout version of us would. But here we are. The Encore... Okay, let me tell you about Encore before we get into it. So y'all can check out some of our other reviews to hear more of those stories, but this one is about Encore. So, did I know when it came out? Of course I did. I was 12 when I met Eminem. Not met him, but discovered him. And I went to let's say the majority of the student population was non-white, we'll go with. It was a mix of Sri Lankan and blacks, but like a very, I don't want to say blacks, I guess, whatever, but like a whole variation of cultures. I think we held the record in Montreal for the most different cultures represented in a single school, so we did like a multicultural thing every year, and it's fucking dope.
That's cool.
Either way, I got exposed to hip-hop at like real young, and then Eminem was popping at this time, and I just started memorizing his songs, and I got hooked, right? And it was at the point where like prior to Encore coming out was when I got my first MP3 CD player. Now keep in mind, this isn't just like the CD player. This is the one where you can get that disc loaded up with MP3, so you could have like a couple hundred songs on one fucking disc and go through them and whatnot.
Okay.
So in that era, prior to having real MP3 players and then getting my early adoptions of MP3 players, and I don't know if I ever got an iPod, maybe like a bit later. So I ended up getting everything Eminem ever did prior to Encore. And I listened to all of it, and I tore over all of it. I was saying even the underground shit that he did was fam or scam or fuck, I said that bad. I was trying to quote the Stam line. But I haven't heard it all. all of it. And I was so into it, and I was so hooked on it. I mean, you gotta keep in mind all the diss songs he's dropping here. Everything's going on. We're starting to get access to the internet, and with Yahoo Launch was what I was using for music back then. And so I was so into it. And then the new Eminem album was coming, and now I'm about 15, 16, so I'm kind of able to get the disc, and my parents are a little bit less enforcing the ability of controlling my music flow. And then this comes out, and keep in mind, Just Lose It was a fun single, and so you're a little bit hyped up, and you're feeling like, okay. And then we'll talk about the review to really go into like how I felt, but it's my least favorite Eminem album. We're gonna start it off like that. It was the first. We'll get into it for real, but like it was honestly the first time I'd ever been disappointed by him was when Encore was released, and I heard the album. And I mean, we'll skip ahead a bit in this review, and you'll see exactly why. But we'll get it. But like, yeah, it was just such a weird moment, and then everything kind of follows up, happens, and whatever. But I don't know. It was just the moment, the magic of Eminem seemed to shatter in my life. Prior to that, he was invincible in my mind, you know. So that's kind of my context. And then I have not listened to this album. I've listened to all of his albums since like high school and shit, but I don't think I've really listened to Encore since high school. For real, this was the first time. So for me, this has been like I've given it all this time. I've literally hated on this on every one of the reviews, right? So people kept requesting it. I guess they want to see me, I don't know.
Suffer.
So now we got we're doing it, okay? It sequentially made sense. It comes after fucking Eminem show, and we even did Devil's Night first, and we did Dre's 2001
He's trying to push
first.
it as
But
long
now we're
as he
here.
could.
Chronologically, it just makes sense. But yeah, we'll talk about it. But man, the blue cover and everything. Hold on. How do you feel about Encore? You should do your part first.
Well, like I was never. Like, I remember listening to this with my sister and her boyfriend at the time because he had the CD and we were driving in his car. And I remember it playing, and I particularly remember Mockingbird, like, standing out. And I think Toy Soldier, like, definitely standing out. I think just, like, the beats, and I think something about them just, like, stood out to me, which is, you know, they are both powerful songs. And I can still remember that moment. Like, I can still remember, like, being in that car, being with them, and, like, listening to this. So I think that that's, like, kind of profound that, like, Eminem still, like, even on, like, his, like, shittiest album, he can still have that, like, long-lasting, like, effect, or, you know, even though. And so, yeah, I remember that. And so, but I haven't listened to it since. So this was kind of like an interesting refresher.
That's fair. And for the record, I learned a really fascinating thing about this album across the way that I'll share with you on the appropriate songs that really changes the context of how I see it now a little bit. But still, I think we can move on to discussing very quickly here just the cover and the title. I mean, it makes sense. We just had the Eminem show, which really worked, and I feel like Encore, it makes sense. It's just the encore to that album. It's continuing the Eminem show. The cover's very blue this time, so it thematically differentiates, but still has him on a stage bowing in his suit. You know, it's a little bit more polished. It's kind of like almost the red thing behind it almost looks like a throne in the way it's positioned, and it just feels like we have him here at the highest of he's ever been. And it, to me, even like it sets my expectations so high, right? Because Eminem show, I devoured that. I knew it by heart at one point, you know? Like, I used to be that asshole on the bus singing Eminem lyrics, like, all of that shit, right on the bus, being an asshole. But now, like, you know, Encore comes out. You see this. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about the cover and title?
Well, I think obviously the title is, again, he's back. He's, you know, he's here again. And I think that is the blue is significant. I think that the blue, you know, he's obviously in a blue kind of mood. So he's not probably his happiest when he's writing this song. I think that kind of reflects on the cover. It's a whole different cover, a color than like the red, and like, you know, other times like his albums have been like black and white and almost like kind of,
Holy
you know,
shit,
the colors stand out with him. So for me, the blue is significant as kind of like a blue period kind of piece.
Whereas like the red for Eminem show is more of this passionate, fiery period.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. That's really cool. I never would have caught that.
Yeah, and also like all of the people who are watching him are all kind of white, white, older people who are kind of just criticizing him, and those are the people who are like in the government and everything else that are in the powers that be, that are kind of just judging him and watching him, and they're the ones kind of prodding him, I think, a little bit.
That's really cool. I'm happy you said all that shit. Anyway, the first one is titled in honor of the previous one, Curtains Up. I gotta say, this is a hype intro because it's very similar to the last one, but it just feels grandeur. You just feel like the behind the scenes. You feel like the shit being wheeled around. You feel like Eminem walking up, getting paced, hyped up, but all you hear is that Eminem, just this fucking crazy ass fucking crowd getting ready to go nuts for him to walk out, and it just shows that the Eminem show's evolved so much more since the last time, and like the level of fame he's reporting, and like at this point it's true in 2004, like it's ridiculous how famous he really is, you know?
Yeah.
And so it just kind of builds up and then flows right into the next song. And I think in terms of getting you hyped up and putting your head into the album, it's 47 seconds that really illustrates the just the differences, I think, that are happening in his life and just how much has changed. And I think that's almost the goal of it. Like, it's this much bigger now. And he's, you know, like it just does the job really well. And it really makes you think of the Eminem Show's intro. And I think it really flows in nicely. And I want to give all the love where it's due on this project. This is one of those places where I can give lots of love. So I give this a 4.5 on 5. I think it's a cool way to start the album, taking into context of just nostalgia and how I felt hearing it and just the overall where it fits into Eminem's catalog and everything. I think it's pretty brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's sort of like him backstage, and you're kind of like with him. And at this point, he's made it. He's successful. He's famous. He's doing, you know, well. And, you know, he's still having like, you know, he's kind of like an expert. He knows what he's doing. And people are still like chanting his name, calling out for him. And it's probably like a really incredible feeling to have that. And I think he's obviously like back for his fans. I think it's kind of what he's saying as well. Like, and it is a perfect good lead up to the next song. I give this a 5 on 5. There's really nothing I can say about it. It's a great intro.
All right, and what's the next song?
Evil Deeds.
So somebody finally took me in, my great aunt and Uncle Edmund Charles.
I had an epiphany.
Wow. Oh, yes.
So I was listening to this chorus. Father, please forgive me, for I know not what I do. Or like just, I'm trying to exaggerate
not quite
there,
like that, but
it was pretty fucking bad. Just how bad his singing is at this point in his career. I never really noticed back then, because I think back then it was like, hey, look, a rapper singing, whatever, you forgive him. But then I realized all these kids that are rapping now must have heard this shit. Must have heard Eminem doing all this stuff, right? And now they all
now they all think they're good singers too?
Now they all use auto-tune, because at the end of the day their shit does not sound like that chorus. Now, sure. I'm not trying to be like overly harsh. It's that nasally Eminem singy voice, so I like it. But normally I feel like there's a lot more polish and perfection on it. Like Haley's song is an example where it doesn't actually come off grating. But on the hook of this, yeah, it's just the perfect example of Eminem completely not singing very nicely, in my opinion. Do you like it?
I mean, I thought it was like the beat was solid at the very least, and it is produced by Dre. So I thought that, you know, that's kind of something to mention.
I meant the chorus though, but do you like his singing on the hook?
I mean, it's not the best. It's like kind of like, I mean, I'm going to say it, I think, a couple of times on here, but it definitely sounds a little bit more juvenile. It doesn't sound like as like grown up, kind of like he's. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, yes, the beat's good. The beat is actually really good. I don't hate that at all. Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty proper. And I'll be honest with you, verse 2 and 3 are pretty solid for what they are. But let's talk about the elephant in the room on this one. You never, ever, ever thought in your life that the first part of an Eminem verse was literally going to have shit, but mama didn't want me. The next thing I know, I'm getting dropped off, getting dropped off, getting dropped off, getting dropped off, getting dropped off.
But, like, that was, like, kind of like a trend, like, at the time in rap. And I think that he's kind of joking about it. Like, I think that he's not taking it seriously. I think he's just kind of playing with it.
Sure, a repetition is something I think he was trying to do, but satire only works if your recipient gets it and enjoys it, right?
But I got it.
I think it sucks ass to listen to. Like,
But I think that's kind of what that's what he's saying. He's like, I think it's just so ridiculous.
Whereas in other ones, I enjoy listening to him as he makes this point. I think my bigger issue with this is that while he's trying to describe how his mom kicks him out and whatever, and even if that is the point he's trying to make, other people make repetitious bullshit, so I'm going to make repetitious bullshit too. I think the other people's repetitious bullshit's actually better than this. Okay, I think this first verse that Eminem does here is one of my least favorite rap verses. I think like fucking Designer, all these guys are better than this particular first verse, okay?
Okay.
Edmund Charles, because apparently there's a Charles in charge, so it's like what the fuck is that reference?
I mean, it's not the most brilliant lines, but I think that he's obviously doing this as like a mockery.
Shh. Look, I'm not disagreeing with you. I acknowledge that he's trying to poke fun at mainstream trends.
Yes, but it isn't pleasant. It isn't good.
Which is the problem, right?
Yeah.
This is the first song on the album, and this is the first verse, right? As a teenager, I was like, wow. And I proceeded to make fun of this song for the following, I guess it's 13 years now at this point, or even more, 15 years. Shit, I'm old. But like, that is kind of like, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Debbie had a Satan spawn. It's like, dude, I don't know. Now he's like trying to make some Exorcist shit mixed in with this. And you know what? Even that part's fine. There's a little bit of creativity there. But fuck this. And by the way, where's my dad?
He's high.
Oh, he's on fucking all sorts of painkillers. I mean,
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to him.
Look, all I'm saying is I don't think this is one of the last minute songs, which we'll touch on later. I think this one was like on purpose. Because you know what? The rest of the stuff is kind of okay. Look, predominantly, everything's always predominantly white, predominantly black. Well, what about me? Hey,
I think that's an interesting thing. He's obviously like, he doesn't quite know where he belongs, and which we kind of get the gist of throughout the album, but he doesn't know like which side he is. He knows that he's white, but like his music is black, and I think that he's kind of like struggling with that, and the audience is struggling with that.
Absolutely. So from a content perspective, the second verse and beyond, the song really goes up to kind of where I think it's supposed to be, and that unfortunate first verse still exists. But even then, I still feel like his timing and shit is just weird on this. And I get that he's trying to up his ante, I guess, or try new things, but it also just might be Vicodin. Well, I'm not playing. Like, this is the album where he's on all sorts of painkillers and shit. And as the album's recording process went on, as I understand it, he got more and more into the substances and as he's mentioned in interviews, I believe his drug of choice was Vicodin.
He was in a dark place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not trying to criticize him for that or judge him for that.
And I think that that's kind of what he's also talking about in this song, and then in several songs on this album, is that he's in a dark place. He realizes that he's not being good. He's realizing that his decisions are like the wrong ones, but he's like continuing on, and he's like being pulled kind of by like the devil, and he feels like he's kind of like the spawn of Satan. He's just such a bad guy, and no matter what he does, he just feels awful and like bad.
And what's interesting about that is that's how so many people were painting him at the time, even though it's probably not anywhere close to true.
Yeah, so then he started actually feeling like that, I guess. Which
I'm not even trying to take away from, because Eminem's story is a completely different thing than this album.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, to go into like the third verse, he goes on to, Dear Santa Claus, why aren't you coming again this year? What did I do that was so bad to deserve this? Which is an amazing line that just throws in a social political commentary at how Santa hates poor kids, considering his background. Beautiful line. I fucking like it a lot. And then you can see a little bit when he wants to take Haley to the mall, but it's a carousel, and without this crowd everywhere I go, but life is a merry-go-round. Here we go, do-si-do, now curtains up, the show must go on now. Ring around the rosy, the show's over, you can all go home now, but it doesn't close for me. So I agree entirely with where he went with this song and made it better. It's just the first verse is so bad. And I also believe that the hook is not good. it's not that it's completely bad. It gets caught in your head like, Father, please forgive me for I know not what I do. I just never had the chance to ever meet you. It gets stuck in your head and, it plays on it all. I just feel like his mockery singing sucks in 2019, okay? That's my thoughts. Now I don't like it. Maybe it made sense. And then you have the gunshots into the crowd. Last one, let's go, Detroit, and the clearing out, whatever. And it's just kind of whatever. It's that same like live show environment that was apparently actually filmed live in Detroit. I don't know. I give this song a 3.9.
Oh, okay.
Because the beat's really well done and verse 2 and 3 are pretty good, but there's enough bad with this song that I don't know that I can call it a good song, okay? A good song shouldn't have an entire annoying first verse that the fifth time you hear it, you're just like, I had a baby and his head popped off, and you're just like, shut the fuck up. That's how I feel sometimes when I hear that song, and that can't be a good song. So 3.9.
Okay.
It's close.
Well, yeah, I'm just kind of like, I feel like we said a lot about it. But, obviously people are just judging him a little bit. And he's also kind of points out that he's feeling frustrated being in like the spotlight and that he can't get away from the paparazzi and they're watching his every move. And like, that's kind of why he's struggling and like they want him to fail and everything else. And so I think he has that pressure on him as well. And he's obviously admitting that he's kind of like dealing with his own demons and that he's, on drugs and that he's still like suffering like a lot of pain from like his childhood and from his marriage and everything else and that's going on in the world and how there's just so much hate toward him. And and so he's, using drugs and whatever. And it's obviously something that we've heard from him before, but this is like kind of a newer version. And he's also kind of dealing now with, he was having difficulty being like kind of like a poor nobody, and now that he's like a rich somebody, he's also struggling with that as well. And he's kind of talking about that as well. And it's not the best, but I thought it was still like a fun song to listen to. I gave it a 4.4.
Okay. Okay. The next one is Never Enough, because there's never enough criticisms for this. I'm kidding. It's basically
there's
the point.
Never enough Nate Dogg and 50 Cent.
That's a better way.
Single die-hard fan who embraced me. I'm thankful for the talent in which God gave me. And I'm thankful.
All right, Bonnie, why don't you start us off on this one?
So I like the last song, it was sounding like he was, being like performing in front of a live audience, and then here it just stops that. Like it just kind of stops.
Well,
I don't know. So
the end of the last song still kind of flows into this song and that like mixtapey feel where everything's kind of connected into one seamless song. But you're right, it just kind of drops it off at this point.
Yeah. So anyways, I found that kind of weird. To either stick with it or don't, or like transition it better. I don't know. So I just wanted to mention that. And Eminem is basically dealing with everybody judging him again, so he's still kind of dealing with that. He knows that he's great, but he's he's being criticized, and he thanks everybody about his like life that's contributed to his success and and like his amazing rhymes because all these people who have been terrible to him only make his poetry better, essentially. And then we have like Nate Dogg on the chorus, and like I always find him so like distinct. Like as soon as like you hear him, like, well, there's Nate Dogg, and so I thought like his chorus is like not necessarily the best. It definitely stood out because his voice stands out. And I felt that 50 Cent was a little bit weird on this song, and I feel like sometimes on this album as well, like he feels a little bit weird and a little bit out of place. But yeah, and I feel like he also wasn't shining on this song.
50?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. Maybe I found Eminem and Nate Dogg stood out more than 50 Cent. I feel like he was a little bit like, I don't know. Something about it. It just didn't work for me. But, I mean, it was still okay. It was a well-made song. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like a hit for me. So I give it a 4 on 5.
Okay. So it's worth noting that this is taking place in the middle of the Benzino beef, where the Source magazine is coming at Eminem, and they're connected to the Murder Inc. beef, I believe, which 50's beefing with Ja Rule, and everybody's beefing with everybody.
Yeah.
So I believe that this song is kind of, pointing out that everybody's coming at him, like you said, but a little bit more targeting in the hip hop element of it, whereas the last one felt a little bit more like he was imploding under life. This one, he
Right.
feels a little more willing to knock a motherfucker out. So it has a little bit more edge to it, and this feels at least like an Eminem song. You know what I mean? It has a polish to it. Like, as an example, every single line in Eminem's verse has the same rhyme scheme. Like, phase me, craze me, drock drazy, save me. Let's jump on down to the bottom part. Fake G, awakening, face me, saving, think about it, blah, 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 face me. So as you can see, that's pretty fucking interesting and impressive. And that level of keeping the narrative moving along and flowing is really, really cool. But then there's that little part where he starts kind of singing a bit. And you know what? It's kind of like what he did on Stepping Stones on Kamikaze, for those who watched it, only the very early versions of him trying it out and it not delivering nicely. The part where he goes, I'm thankful for the talent in which God gave me, and I'm thankful for the environment that he placed me. I feel like I love the sentiment of what he's saying, but he's kind of a little bit more aggressive and kind of pushing this rapping. It almost feels like we're on that song with Nate Dogg on the last project, a little bit like Till I Collapse, like hip hop spirit. And then he just kind of goes soft on us a little bit in the middle of the verse with bad singing, and then goes right back into it again. And I felt like that was a little bit weird to me. Overall, it's fine. It's not it's not like I feel like Eminem says anything super sufficient here. I mean, it's good. He's humble, and I like his humility. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to kind of take away from that, but I also feel like maybe that's part of it. It's weird to see Eminem be humble while talking about how he's going to destroy everyone.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, so that's fine. Nate Dogg, I do feel like of the Nate Dogg hooks, it's not the best. But still, it's a Nate Dogg hook, so it's the fucking best. You can just sit there and be like, no matter how many battles I've been in and won, no matter how many magazines on my nuts, no
It's just
matter how
catchy,
many
it's
MCs
good.
I hit up. Woo! Yeah, it's just
It's never enough.
It's stuck. It's good. That's the highlight of this song, is Nate Dogg's hook. Now, when I heard 50's verse, I think I had the opposite effect of you. I felt like Eminem's verse was a little bit weird. But 50's verse was him doing 50, and you were completely correct in that they don't belong on the same song together. But I think that if we use Nate Dogg as the centralized point, 50 sounds better with Nate Dogg, making me think that 50 fit better on the track. And it's like, my flow's untouchable. This whole swag to how he delivers his lines and shit. And I really felt it.
Something about him, I don't know.
I really liked when he was like, I spit shit, slick shit, so quick you miss it. To be specific, I go ballistic as hieroglyphic. My music is a drug plus play. You ain't gotta sniff it, shoot it, pop it, roll it, bag it, or chop it. I don't know. There's something about that delivery of 50 Cent, the ex-drug dealer, shipping music like the drug distribution business, and seeing what he did with his empire and shit. You're like, okay. Plus,
50's an awesome guy.
The main difference, I think, between Eminem's verse and 50 Cent's verse is confidence. You feel the swagger in 50 Cent, and you don't 100% feel it in Eminem here, which makes sense where he's at in life, but I think it's very noticeable to me. So I'm giving this a 4.4, because if we didn't have that little thankful bit in the middle of that verse from Em, I think this would be a really good, really, really good song, and it's just a smidge away from that. But overall, the beat is absolutely fucking fantastic. It pumps really well. It's really I finally, at this point, you're like, okay, it's not going to be completely a bad album, this is where it should have started. I don't know what the hell is happening on Evil Deeds personally, but weirdly enough, you liked it. I gave this one a 4.4. We felt very differently, so that's the interesting part, I think, of music, is how we can all feel so fucking different about it.
Well, let's go down the yellow brick road.
All right.
Well informed me, I'm well aware that I don't belong here. You made that perfectly clear.
Eminem, literally on this song, gives us the blueprint on how to actually deal with scandals in 2019. right? Because for the context of this, in the midst of the source beef with Eminem, Benzino releases this little mixtapey thing where he puts out Foolish Pride by Eminem, which if you haven't heard is the little racist track he wrote about a girl, and it's like got lines like, see, black girls are bad and white girls are good, and like it literally has lines that blatant about some shit, and it was done when he was like 16 in a basement. So Eminem addresses it head on and says, yeah, I was young, dumb, hurting, stupid, it was stupid, and wrote this to really explain the context in deep detail of how he got there, because this song has always like really hit me. I didn't know what Foolish Pride was when I first heard it. I only heard that out once YouTube and it really became available. Y'all can check it out if you want. But this is a song about being white in a black environment, and that's something I can really relate to for 5 years of my life, and I don't know, I always connected with that, and there was just some shit that I never really understood it until I got more education later on. But hearing it now and really just kind of thinking back, I really like what Eminem did here. He wasn't trying to justify anything. He was really just explaining how it came to be that way in his perception. Stuff like commenting on how the X-Clan tapes is racist and he doesn't fully understand it, or how they tried to rock out and like, you know, rock certain gear and got snatched, and people, they didn't really understand what the fuck any of this meant. They just understood all of a sudden people started hating white people, and then they were there, you know? But I really just, I love the first verse and how he just kind of touches on what's going on, where he's coming from, how he recorded this in a basement, you know, and then he's just kind of thinking back and he's like, man, that was a different time. And then that whole second verse, you know, just kind of paints this picture of how he got into hip hop and how he met Proof and how they were into multiple rhyming, like birthday and first place, because they're doing 2-syllable rhyming, which is more complicated than your average shit, and etc. But even at the beginning of that, it's shit like, he looked at me like I'm out my mind, shook his head like white boys don't know how to rhyme. Now, I can remember just anecdotally being 12 years old. I had stolen my dad's copy of DMX's Volume 3, and then there was X, because for some reason, that was in my apartment. Went to school, I was listening to it, and some black ladies were like, you know what, that's not for you. You can't be listening to that shit. So I can kind of relate a bit to that exclusion. Now I understand it, and I'm not even holding any malice, and it's not even what this is about. But I remember hearing this, and it was some like really relatable shit that I'd never really understood. And then as time went on, I've always kind of loved this track for what it is. And then when you learn what it's about and realize that this song is not necessarily, it is an apology, but it's more of an explanation, kind of painting a picture in such a vivid way where you don't agree with Eminem's choice, but you also don't sit there and go, you're a fucking asshole racist. You're like, you know what? You were just an angry teenager reacting to shit you didn't understand, and now you know better. And that's what's incredible about this track, is he manages to go on through and he tells you the story of how this girl cheated on him, or he cheated, Kim left him, so he meets this next girl, the black girl, and he dates her, and then she dumps him for the next guy, and, you know, he's heartbroken, and he wrote the fucking song, and then somehow that got leaked. And having the yellow brick road and the whole smooth, now this is a fucking chorus, so let's go back, follow the yellow brick road as we go on another episode. It's kind of got more of that like Lose Yourself feel to the hook, that more rappy side. He's not trying to do some pop singing. This song is like, it just, there's so much going on with the rhyming that's amazing, the singiness of the second verse, the flow, the whole bridge part is basically verse 2, you know, and then the whole third verse is just such an, every time you hear it, you just kind of, you feel like you're there walking down those same tracks with him, witnessing the world through his eyes, like the part where like Puma got attacked apparently incorrectly, and then everybody just chucked their shoes and shit, like when you go look into it and you're like, damn, that is a fascinating like tale, you know. And even without the context of what triggered this song, I think this is an incredible thing. I believe it was a single. I think I had a cartoon video back when he was still doing that shit. But I don't know if objectively this song is flawless, but I can tell you that this is one off of Encore that I've been listening to since the first time I've heard it. Every time I hear it, I like it. I like it more as time goes on, not less. So that's a lot of years of liking this song. I mean, to me, it's a 5. It's pretty fucking great on every front possible. It's like, again, track 4, we're giving it a 5. It seems like it took a little bit on an Eminem album, but it happened. We did it, guys. We got a 5 on this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's basically what the whole song's about. It's kind of like the gist of it, right? And then he's just kind of apologizing for these kind of, you know, lines that he said, back in the day, and that he's sorry, and that's pretty much it. And he's not in that position anymore. He doesn't feel that way. So it is interesting that he's apologizing for that. And he talks about like this other black girl that he was seeing, and she was the one that like leaked the tapes of like these like kind of racist
Did
songs.
she?
Yeah, that's what he says, I think, in the song.
Oh.
And that kind of all women are bitches, basically. He's
That's how he ends it.
Yeah, so he's still pretty upset. Like, he basically saying you can't trust anybody no matter what their skin color or whatever. And for me, like, I found it was like an okay song. Like, I found it kind of long. It's like 5 minutes, 46 seconds. So it's kind of a long song. And I found that it was kind of annoying sounding a little bit.
What?
And I feel like it seems very like targeted, and like at the times, like, obviously something that he was dealing with, and like kind of like a personal issue that was going on back then. But it doesn't like really like, I mean, I guess it does translate today into comparisons to like what you're saying.
So imagine somebody finds out some shit that you said from 2009 on Twitter. This is how you approach the subject, because Eminem's got past that and they completely destroyed Benzino. This was part of the bigger part of the beef. It was really personal. It was really going in like that, right? I'm pretty sure Benzino got it somehow. I don't know how it leaked exactly, but you're right. I completely forgot about how it ends, where it just kind of goes into a pure Slim Shady move. But I've heard a lot of people say they heard the tape and it ain't that bad, but it was. It singled out a whole race, and for that I apologize. I was wrong, because no matter what color a girl is, she's still and then he censors himself, but he's about to call y'all bitches. And that's I mean, as much as I would take that as that's a humor thing, as how I would interpret that. He's recognizing very clearly that no matter how good the song is, it was racist and it was not okay. But Eminem's okay with being sexist at this time, so he proceeds to do a humor in it. Now, in 2019, looking back, I can understand how it looks a certain way, but for the level of awareness of 2004, I mean, I kind of get that the joke makes sense, even if it doesn't age well.
Yeah, I don't know. I gave it a 3.7. It wasn't my favorite.
That's fair. That's really sad. Why don't we talk about like Toy Soldiers?
Okay.
Beside him, that Josh said I tried to squash it. It was too late to stop it. There's a certain line you just.
All right, Bonnie, your turn.
Okay. So I watched like a clip of an interview that he, was doing, I guess. And then like there was and he was talking about this song and how it was basically him trying to like close a chapter like of violence and of like rap beefs. He just wanted it all to be over and for nobody else to get hurt, because he just couldn't, he just wants it to be done with, because like these, rap beefs become violent, and then, it's not necessarily like him or like the person who's like the main target. Sometimes it's like your buddy or your pal or your brother or whoever, and and he's obviously talking about Proof at this time.
No, Proof hasn't died yet.
Oh no?
Proof dies in 2006.
Oh, I thought this was about Proof.
Bugs, the original member of D12 that I don't remember who it was that came in, whatever. Somebody else had died, and I think it was just related to it. I mean, another interesting thing is around this time, Run DMC's Jam Master Jay had been taken out, and in an assassination style, like they walked into the studio and lied him down, back of the head, popped him, and it's believed that this happened simply because he was willing to work with 50 Cent at a time when there was a complete blackout on working with 50 Cent by a certain person. And anyway, the stories related to that are really fascinating.
Okay.
So it's just so many different people in all sorts of it. Like there's several, I mean, then there's all sorts of
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't think it's just like
if
exclusively this
even
one.
if you look at the
about.
50 Cent and Jaw beef, I don't know the timeline, but like shoot-ups happened, people were getting robbed, like it wasn't exactly like, and it was like managers doing it, or these guys. It wasn't like the artist, it was the squads. And then Eminem's got all these guys in Detroit willing to do whatever for him, and then these are the people, the foot soldiers, like the casualties of the wars. I think Eminem's realizing that he jumps into it, and it's not just rhymes anymore. The reality is that these beefs affect so many people.
They're taken
because
seriously.
people are taking it that seriously, and he didn't understand it, which is kind of, where I think this song came into it, where it was him deciding like, I need to settle it down. And then to know that Proof gets taken out a couple years later in light of it is just so fucking tragic.
Well, he's saying like it's not worth it, basically. You know, like he just wants them to be done with, and he's also saying that he's not going to. Like he's not gonna walk away if somebody starts like a beef with him. Like he's not backing down from anything, but he's like not gonna start anything. Like he doesn't want that on him. Like he doesn't want like his people to like. He doesn't want that.
It's even more than that. To me, at least, and even though the battle was won, I feel like we lost it. I spent so much energy on it. Honestly, I'm exhausted. I'm so caught in it that I almost feel like I'm the one who caused it. This ain't what I'm in hip hop for. That's not why I got in it. So I mean, there's a difference between the battling and the competitive spirit, and then the desire to absolutely destroy people. And then you know what? If you keep it going, at a certain point, you do take on blame, regardless of who started it.
Yeah.
And I love the self-awareness in this song, but. It needs to be said that for my entire life, there's been a blank out on this album I didn't know. This wasn't my intentions. My intentions were good. I went through my whole career without ever mentioning Suge. I mean, I should have made that connection maybe, but Suge, he's talking about Suge Knight, and makes, and that was out of respect for not running my mouth and talking about something that I knew nothing about, plus Dre told me stay out. Like, all the fucking signs are there that is Suge Knight. If I had ever really thought about it as like an adult maybe, now I know. And Dre told him to stay out because he's all over TV down talking the man. And I mean, that was happening. And Eminem never, ever did mention Suge, come to think of it, and showing that he has some like wisdom there. Or at least he understands his beefs. And then I love like where he's like, you know, fuck it. Or how he did it. They tried to stop 50 Cent from jumping into the Ja Rule beef. It wasn't worth it. But then 50 started running his mouth. How he stabbed him. Fuck it. 50 smash him, mash on him, let him have it. Meanwhile, his attention's pulled toward the source and they inherit each other's beefs. And he's just kind of painting how quickly and easily things can get over the top and complicated to a point where it like it's really sad and it's very heavy. And then you have that like hook that like step by step, heart to heart, you know, and it really follows up because remember, Soldier was on the last album.
Yep.
It was ready to go, and this is almost like, wow, it's changed. Like the whole attitude and the perspective
it's just like
is
a
evolved.
game. It's such like a childish game, like these like toy soldiers, like, and how it's not just, you know, it's not just like a piece, you know, gets taken away. Like this is like a real person, you know, that he's kind of saying. I guess he's comparing
and
it
all
to
the other innocence and shit. I don't know. I mean, this song at the time I really didn't like. I thought it was kind of weak or whatever, and I didn't really understand it. But now that I like have heavy nuance in Eminem, all of his beats, what is it? Diverse Mentality. That channel has a good amount of coverage on these beefs if you really want to learn more about them, like complete timeline shape, and like understanding it all now and just having a better context of hip hop history. His like talking flow, it just feels so personal. Like he's dropping the pretense. This is Marshall Mathers pouring his heart out. This isn't about Eminem. This isn't about shock value. This is about pleading with everyone, man to man, almost, just to like let's be smarter. And
he's trying to be like the bigger person. He's trying to be like the one, like kind of like the first person to put their gun down. Like he's just trying to be like, you know what? Like I'm done with this. Like I'm gonna stop. Like he's kind of encouraging everybody else to stop because he is at this time essentially he's one of like the biggest rappers, and you know, which he kind of still is. You know, debatable. You're up to you, whatever. But like at this time, like he was at the top, and so he's like, I'm gonna step away from all of this, and you can follow me or you can continue this, but like you're gonna lose people. And I think that's kind of like what he's saying, and I think that was like a pretty good message that he's kind of putting forth.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a beautiful piece, all things considered, and I give it a 5 because this really is one that it's heavy, and you can, but I feel like the storytelling and the picture painting, the absolute rhyming, it's all the best parts of Eminem, but also showing something that we don't often get a lot of, real maturity and growth, which I think as an adult now, looking back, it makes me appreciate this song even more for how rare this type of shit ended up being, all things considered, you know?
Yeah. And you don't have to know like who was in a beef and like the gist of like, you know, everybody's like, you know, fights essentially, but like you understand like what he's talking about and you kind of get it, even though it is still kind of like of the time, like it was like, you know, he's talking about like things that were happening then, so it's not necessarily relevant to today, but it can still like connect with you today, like, you know, because I'm sure there still are rap beefs, right? So yeah, I give this a 4.75. I think it's a pretty great song.
All right, Well, the next one is Mosh.
Mastered his craft / entrepreneur who has helped launch a few more rap acts.
I mean, I remember this one. This is a song that led me onto my politically charged life. I don't know that I'd care as much about politics if Eminem had not written this song. I'm going to be honest with you. Simultaneously, Puff Daddy, I think he was still Puff, or maybe it was P. Diddy at the time, was doing the Vote or Die campaign. And back in 2004, it was like okay to have political opinions in rap. Somehow doing it again for Trump 10 years later, all that time later, it's like everyone forgot that Eminem is a political rapper on every album, pretty much.
Yep.
Just saying. That's why I find it weird how his fan base turned. They were okay with him when he was shitting on Bush, but not okay with shitting on Trump. I'm like, okay, whatever. Don't be hypocrites, fan base, you know? Because, his sales did not tank all over the world on Revival. They only tanked in the States. Anyway. This is definitely, it was released, I believe, like 2 days before the election where George Bush got his second term, and it was like a fucking go out there and vote move, a very cartoon video reminiscent of white America.
Yeah.
It starts off with kind of an intro, like with the kids doing the Pledge of Allegiance, which is fucking weird that anyone has to do a Pledge of Allegiance in school, publicly mandated. It's basically propaganda brainwashing at an early age, yo. See that shit for what it is. That's some fucked up shit. Now, if you're American and that means a lot to you and some patriotic stuff, etc.
But I think that's why. It's because you're kind of, I don't want to say like brainwashed, but I'm saying it. But like you're taught like from a young age every day to say this, and it just becomes like automatic, and it's kind of, it kind of is. That's what it is.
But it's so not a reality of America from an outsider's perspective, but whatever. And I love how Eminem jumps in. People, it feels so good to be back. What song? Square Dance, the last anti-Bush song we got. Now Mosh with me now. We're changing the tone. I think that there are some real highlights. The first verse is kind of people are focusing on him and what he's got to say. My favorite part of that is it's just all in your mind, what you interpret it as. I say to fight and you take it as I'm going to whip someone's ass. If you don't understand, don't even bother to ask. A father was growing up with a father was passed, whatever. Goes on and flosses how he's a good rapper, but he's doing like the slowest fucking flow ever, and this is a rare thing that it's so excellently delivered, because normally I don't really see Eminem as a super slow rapper, but it's like he slowed this right the fuck down so that everybody could hear what the message of this track was.
Yep.
But that particular line, it's so powerful because so often in this life our conflicts between our different camps and groups are specifically related to a lack of understanding and our inability to listen and communicate with others. So the idea that Eminem says to fight, and what he means is to fight for your rights, to be charged, or to be politically involved, to go vote, in a sense, is fighting. If people mosh the fucking ballot boxes and cast their votes, they can make change.
Yep.
Or knock a person out. However, it's your interpretation that paints the reality that you see. And so the fact that he has that idea right at the beginning, he's an entrepreneur. He's helped launch a few more rap acts. He's helping other people. Anyway, and then as it moves on, we get to like literally being like a 16-year-old. One of my favorite parts. They tell us no, we say yeah. They tell us stop, we say go. Rebel with a rebel yell. Raise hell, we gonna let him know. Stomp, push, shove, mush. Fuck Bush until they bring our troops home. Come on. As a 16-year-old, passionately charged and shit. Yep, I felt this. I was right there with it. I mean, it was bold. It was blatant. Or if we get to the last verse where he's like, we should mosh down and take over the fucking White House. Or the lines, like, sorry, I mean, there's too many good lines. Like, maybe we can reach Al-Qaeda through my speech, let the president answer a higher anarchy, strap him with an AK-47, let him go fight his own war, let him impress daddy that way. And the fact that Eminem was so politically in touch to be able to understand George Bush's nuances like that is cool, because a lot of people didn't see it till way after. I read a book that kind of broke down that Bush basically started a war over a daddy ego issue, and that was very predictable if people have been watching for it. And apparently Shady's one of the guys who was able to call it for what it was back in the day. Anyway, then there's the idea of how the poor fight the wars and everything. It's so this song is wise, you know? Like, it's really touching on so many
Yep.
actual issues, researched proper, to fight our own soil. No more psychological warfare to trick us into thinking we ain't loyal. If we don't serve our own country, we're patronizing a hero. Look in his eyes. It's all lies. Now, think about this as if he had changed fuck Bush to fuck Trump. The entire song is valid today. Okay? The entire song. They should have been, they just put it on revival, just Mosh. Remastered with a different beat. I don't know. Or the Stars and Stripes have been swiped, washed out, and wiped and replaced with his own face. Mosh now or die. I think it's a lot more true now than ever. If I get sniped tonight, you'll know why. Because I told you to fight. Whew. Whew. Man, that shit inspired me. I think I still care deep and passionately because of songs like this when I was young. Anyway, and then that hook is just, come along, follow me as I lead through the darkness, as I provide just enough spark that we need to proceed, carry on, give me hope, give me strength, come with me, and I won't steer you wrong. You know, this leader that's calling together, let's be the outcast, let's politically take back the system. He's just, it's so fucking powerful, it's so charged, that beat's good, and I mean, there are moments where I don't agree with my grade, but I'm giving this a 5 because I love everything about it. This is, I think, the pinnacle of what Eminem can do politically. And if he had maybe taken a more well-researched and less sensationalist approach with his, you know, latest political tracks, it would have been stronger. But this is a really good example of something that I think is really in touch with the reality of the situation, and the beat's good, and Eminem just kills it, in my opinion. And so, yeah, I know I don't like Encore as an album, but there are fucking amazing songs laced in, so this is absolutely another 5.
Interesting. So yeah, I knew that you were gonna like this one for sure. Just I feel like you like army type things, so I don't know, something about it. And I was like, yeah, I bet you're gonna love this one. So it's obviously like criticizing the state of violence and the state of like, you know, just everything that he's kind of seeing right now and like how people are behaving. And at the same time, it's kind of like at like the pinnacle of like the war against Islam and against Afghanistan and Iran and Iraq and like I don't even remember all those places, but like it was post 9/11, so it was like Bush going after like everybody that caused 9/11, essentially, or whatever he thought it was, bin Laden. And again, this kind of like anger and like discrimination of sending like American troops, and people are getting killed, and like the way that kind of American society sets people up to be so patriotic and have that, you know, passion for their country and willing to die for their country whenever they go to war. So I think that that's kind of interesting that they're basically signing up to die a lot of the time, and they just feel like it's like the thing that they have to do. And I think that that's like a common feeling for most countries, but I think it is also like very like they're a little bit more focused on it in America, I think.
Right.
And then there's sort of like a thunderstorm happening, and he talks about bin Laden and kind of talks about like issues of the time, kind of more about like oil, and he talks about like obviously fuck Bush at the end. And so it's I don't know, I thought it's obviously it's good, it's very political. It's not my favorite song that's on here. I'm not giving it a 5, but I am giving it a 4. I think it's a good song, I enjoyed it, but I don't know if it still carries on, even though yes, you can translate it and put it in today, but
it would fit seamlessly into today's political climate. It's almost like this song foreshadowed what would happen if we weren't smart. That's some dope ass shit.
I think it's something, you know, history repeats itself. Let's
but
just
I
say
think
that.
it's an astute observation, and I think this song is undervalued, is all I'm trying to say. Maybe
Right.
anyway, considering what's on this album, this is one of the highlights in my opinion. You know it's not one of the highlights, Bonnie? I don't think it's...
Puke.
Do it. Yeah,
Puke.
Puke.
Blech.
You may not think you do, but you do every time I think of you.
Story time. Because it really matters. We read this book, How Music Got Free by Stephen Witt. It's a
Nobody
really...
can see it. You're so far away.
It's a really good book. You should check it out. It kind of describes the technological
It's pretty
process
interesting.
of album leaks and everything from the birth of the MP3 on. Very fascinating book. But it also just showed that there was a big culture for leaks, and especially around
and who
this
was
time, it was the
leaking it, and
highlight.
like how it was getting leaked. It's really cool to like read about.
Somebody's brother, or cousin or buddy, I can't remember whose it was, leaked 4 songs off of Encore, which is believed to be the bonus tracks. We as Americans, it's believed to be. There's no confirmation. We're not 100% sure which ones were actually meant to be on Encore. However, if you do know and you've like found definitive proof, feel free to let me know in the comments. I found speculative proof, so I don't want to say definitively anything. But then a really high Eminem, like loaded on painkillers, returned to the studio, flew back out to Cali, and made 4 songs in like a couple of days. Puke is one of those songs. Eminem's puking into the toilet.
And you know it's Eminem because he wouldn't do something half-assed. It's not just like a recorded. It's probably actually him throwing up.
Sure. And then, you don't know how. Now, if you thought my comments on his singing were like a little bit judgmental on evil deeds, this is why there's fucking mumble rap, okay? This song and a couple of others, they all heard this and went, that's bad. That's not yummy sounding in any significant way. Whoa. Like, it's just not good, okay? And so now we have mumble rap. And now I'm saying on wax, Eminem did this by releasing this. I don't care whatever y'all want to say to defend his intentions. Sometimes the consequences of your actions. Like, I realized Eminem on this album is the first person to teach me what syrup was and lean and shit. Like, Eminem taught me a lot about drugs. Now, I'm not saying that him sober and it's amazing, etc., but like understand the consequences and don't judge the kids for doing drugs and making music. When you made Encore, because that is something I'm seeing, and I'm a little bit like, okay. Anyway, this is okay. I think we get the crux of what happened in verse 2. I was gonna take the time to sit down and write you a little letter. This is to Kim. But I thought a song would probably be a little better instead of a letter that you'd probably just shred up. Yeah. It's clever, though, actually, right? Because she would shred up the letter, and now this is forever on wax Eminem. I stumbled upon your picture. It made me stop to think how much it of a wasted beat. For me to put some ink to a stupid piece of paper, I'd rather let you know how much I fucking hate you in a freestyle. Then you realize that this entire song is just Eminem freestyling about hating Kim. You're a fucking cokehead slut. I hope you fucking die. I hope you go to hell and Satan sticks a needle in your eye. I hate your fucking guts, you fucking slut. I hope you die. He's literally repeating himself in the lazy way that isn't good in this part. Die. Mumble rap is around for a reason. And it just kind of goes on like that. The whole first verse, he's getting like a tattoo of her after he hates her. And so now his next girlfriend's got to be named Kim. Yeah. And look, the song goes on like this. It is 2 really not good verses. Here's what I realize. I'm 31 and I'm not very funny. Because I'm not young and I'm not in touch with shit. And Eminem's about my age when this comes out, because he was like 28 on Eminem shows a couple years later. He's about 30. So if I were to try to be like edgy and funny now, it would really come off like Puke. And that's what this was. This was an edgy guy failing at being edgy by really just making something that ultimately looks really lame, in my opinion. The beat's okay. There's nothing wrong with the beat. But Eminem produced the beat. This is like a whole Eminem locked himself in a room and made this by himself without anybody telling him this was a stupid fucking idea, and he was probably high and thought it was good or whatever. I don't really know. The only redeemable qualities is that he actually does rhyme and rap technically well. So I gave this a 2 on 5 because this is actually bad. I've given like 10 songs ever under a 3, and this is one of them.
Yep. It's definitely pretty gross, like when he's like throwing up at the beginning, and then like, yeah, and it's like I'm not a fan of this. I wasn't a fan of this now. I'm not a fan of it ever. I didn't like it when Pink did it in Stupid Girls. I don't like it here. I don't like puking sounds on any songs or anything. And this is basically like another whiny song about him going on about fucking Kim again and how much he hates her. But he just can't get over her. But like,
But it doesn't sound good. There's no artistic.
No, the beat was like okay. It's definitely not the best beat ever either. And you know, this is obviously a freestyle and whatever, but it's just like unpleasant to listen to. It's not that good. I think that he really just needs to like get over his fucking emotions with Kim, and I assume by now he has. But like
Well, that was on Revival.
Yeah. And anyways, it's definitely not one that I would ever willingly just go back to. I gave it a 3 on 5.
Now, I just want to say, write as many songs as you want about Kim. Don't do this. Don't. Just try. Like, it sounded like he was like, I know I'm good. I can just walk in, do it. It'll be fine. And it shows.
I think that's what he was like depending on, but it didn't work out.
And it wasn't funny. I think it was meant to be like funny. But again, he's getting to the
and
age.
we get it's like the encore, like we want him to do what he once did again, and so I think that's what he's trying to do. He is trying to like be like the old school like Slim Shady or whatever.
But he's not.
But
being
he's not
funny on this one.
It doesn't work.
Anyway, the next one is my first single.
That shit is not gonna change long as I got like a Dre on my team. I'll get away with murder.
As I hit pause in the little break we took listening was when he has the shit sound where he shits into a toilet and you hear it plop and it just literally hear the splash. So at least it's a good fart shit noise. This is another one that would fit the description of ones he whipped in, but let's just talk about how wicked that beat is. It is so good, that beat. It is so catchy. It is just so flows nice that at the very least Eminem sounds really good as he's kind of vapid on this one, like, and it's a little vapid. It's a little like out there. You're just kind of saying anything. Like Shady's the label, after math is the stable that the horses come up. Of course, we're about to stir up. That's cool because horses have stirrups and it makes sense. It's kind of like a horsey noise, I guess. I don't fucking know. Some shit as thick as Mistress Butterworth syrup. It's the picked on Christopher Reeves just for no reason other than to just tease him. And then he goes on to point out how he just makes fun of him for like no reason. And he probably killed him because he like fucking, is that this one where he like fucking kills him because he puts his poster up between two other ones? Or he used to be Superman, now pouring liquor on the curb in his name, Eminem, you wait, anyway, I don't know. Still, it's fine. Then he just kind of feels like he can get away with anything as long as Dre's on his team and he can just kind of say whatever. And I mean, this beat is really good, so I'll give him some credit on that. Even, you know, I don't know if Dre made this beat actually, but anyway, and this song's whole point is to like make fun of the idea of a conventional first single trend. So here is where I think his satire does hit, because, you know, he's deliberately fucking up his own first single and is like kind of like set up like to be a first single with that hook, like, and this was supposed to be my first single, and then he burps. Well, I just fucked that up. So, and you know, like, so he's deliberately making an anti-single. I don't think the humor is as funny in highlight as it was, but we do need to take some time to point out a lyric in the second two. Jigga, 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 Anna just turned 16 and used a fake ID to sneak in VIP to see R. Kelly. He, to be so young and naive. And I'm like, hey, anyone who tries to pretend like people weren't pointing out how creepy R. Kelly was, well, Eminem's doing it right here on this fucking album, okay?
Yep.
Just because so many people pretended like they didn't know what R. Kelly's about. Man, that's just been public information for over a decade. I'm trying to say. Anyways, and then he has a circle jerk, and I mean, it feels so random, right? And it's just so random. And then he does his third verse, and then I don't know, nothing really fucking happens, in my opinion. I do like when he does the I think Rain Man is the one I was thinking of, is where he does the killing off of Superman. My bad. Oh, yeah. But I do like in this one when he kind of does the 50 Cent flow when he's talking about Britney Spears and Britney fucking, and he's like, to find out it was just done saying I'm gone, you know, like that. Like,
I thought he was saying Justin.
Well, I was saying
kind of like that, like he was talking about like Justin and Britney.
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
But I was trying to do it with like the flow thing, because he's doing like 50 Cent's little bouncy flow that he has there, and he's kind of playing with that, and I thought that was really fun. Overall, this is it's a pretty good song. I don't have a lot that I like it. It's fluffy, but I also don't dislike it really. It's a 4.25. He flexes his flow. The beat's really good. I mean, this would be like what I would consider the lower end of a good Eminem album.
Yeah.
Even though it's the higher end of this album. Well, maybe the mid-end of this one. I don't know. It's better than some of the bad.
Yeah. And this one is obviously he's like showing off like his like rap skills because it is pretty fast. And even it definitely sounds very juvenile again. Like, you know, he's shitting and he's burping on this one, and he's obviously not taking himself very seriously, which is, you know, it's fine. And then he's kind of pointing out a lot of other celebrities and how they're terrible role models, kind of, and how they're just embarrassing. For me, like, this one wasn't another great one. Like, there were good elements in it, and his rhymes are tight, but I still don't like this one so much. And it, like, I don't know. I didn't like this one. I gave it a 3.5 on 5.
Fair enough. All right. Why don't we move on to our Paul skit?
Michael Jackson is extremely upset about the Just Lose It video.
Holy shit, apparently that whole fucked up flow thing I was talking about had nothing to do with 50 Cent on the last song. It had to do with, like, another move from the source trying to imply Eminem had dropped an N-bomb, but it was actually Justin Timberlake playing with sounds, and so he was making fun of that in specific, so I wanted to correct that before y'all in the comments came at me and corrected it for me. Either way, it doesn't change much on how I feel about that, but why don't we talk about this Paul skit? Bonnie?
Yeah. So this is like another kind of usually you do hear like, you know, a skit like this of like a voicemail by, you know, it's his manager, right? Paul Rosenberg. And he talks about that Michael Jackson is not happy from his last video and they need to like make a plan to deal with him and deal with that. And then he talks about that there's a rumor that Eminem has a new gun, but he's probably like, oh, that's probably not true, but we still have to talk about that as well. And then just kind of wants a call back. And it fits. It's good. I don't have anything bad to say about it. I'm giving it a 4.25.
I think it's one of the worst Paul skits, all things considered, because of all the Paul skits, it's just, I think, the most vapid, least interesting. Like, oh, you pissed off Michael Jackson. We have to talk about that. It just doesn't feel quite the same. And I like the future ones and all the other Paul skits more than this one. But it's still a Paul skit. It's still cool. It gets a 4. It feels like not having it would be worse than having it, so it's a 4.
Yeah, let's talk about Rain Man.
Okay.
5-cent stickers on my refrigerator, right next to Darth Vader. And Darth...
So all that stuff I said about him killing off Christopher Reeves and justifying it's on this song. Whoopsies. How do you feel about Rain Man?
So it's obviously like inspired from like the movie Rain Man. And he's kind of like at the beginning and then like a few times I think a little bit more at the sorry, I burped. At the end was supposed to be like kind of like a Dustin Hoffman's character in Rain Man. He's trying to be like someone with autism or whatever. And the beat I found was kind of like mediocre, and I find like the whole song is just dumb. And like when he's like asking Dre if he goes on this like just ridiculous like gay scenario to prove whether or not
Dre,
he thinks it's gay.
What's up? I got a question, if I may. Yeah. Is it gay to play putt-putt golf with a friend? Yeah. And watch his butt buff when he tees off? Yeah. But I ain't done yet. In football, the quarterback yells out "hut hut" while he reaches in another grown man's ass, grabs on his nuts. But just what if it was never meant? It was just an accident. He tripped, fell, slipped, and his penis went in. His teeny tiny little round hiney, and he didn't mean it, but his little weenie flinched just a little bit. And I don't need to go into any more details. But what if he pictured it as a female's butt? All of that is sad. Is that gay? I just need to clear things up. Till then, I'm going to walk around with a boundly strut, cuz. And you're like, what?
It's just like Eminem, you just give us so many mixed messages. Like, I don't know. Is he gay? Is he not? I don't know.
But like I think it's a bigger conversation. Because, like, the song is about people finding him offensive.
It's just such an absurd situation.
But I can kind of relate to this in 2004. Like, I understand South Park. South Park's episode on gay is a really good starting point to explain where I'm coming from. I grew up where gay didn't mean homosexual, and all these comments didn't mean homosexual. They just meant something else entirely. And then all of a sudden, these words became like really bad to say, and it all of a sudden wasn't allowed to make those kinds of jokes and shit. And so Eminem's whole career was made off of this type of offensive humor, and so. At what point do you draw the lines? I mean, literally, this is a relevant conversation for the state of YouTube 2019, right? Because they're clearly drawing censorship lines, and they're clearly saying if something's too offensive, your whole channel might get taken out, and Patreon, kicks some guy off for using an N-word in some other situation that wasn't even on a Patreon-related content. So just to hear the way it starts, you find me offensive. I find you offensive for finding me offensive. And I mean, it goes on from that and talks about how censorship is being used and all this other shit loosely into his I do joke about Christopher Reeves, but oh my god, because I put him between some shit, he's gonna fucking die. That's how ridiculous everything sounds. So I think that when we understand that framing and then go into the second verse, and now in the Bible it says, thou shalt not watch two lesbians in bed have homosexual sex, unless, of course, you were given the consent to join in. Then, of course, it's intercourse, and it's bisexual sex, which isn't as bad. Which then made me wonder, is that true? Is bisexual sex worse or better than homosexual sex from a religious standpoint? I digress. And the whole verse is, again, taking shots at how people are treating the censorship of homosexuality. And remember, this was a hot topic, like everything else is a hot topic now. And so Eminem was trying to fight back against his right to use gay jokes, which is, again, a parallel thing that we're seeing all over today. On that end, I think it's really interesting. Now, I'm of the mind that, well, no, Eminem, you're being a little homophobic sounding here. A little sounding. I don't think he is. I think he's actually asking genuine questions, pointing out how ridiculous shit is. Because at that same time, you also had a lot of people probably going, yo, is it gay if this happens? Yo, is it gay if that happens then? Yo, is it gay if, I'm in the room and I see his dick because he was taking a piss? At the same time, all of this is going on around him. So I think it's a satirical point that, again, looks really shady in hindsight.
Okay.
But maybe decent satire for 2004. And I say decent because I don't think this is the best song, but I also think that this is one that just didn't age well while being kind of completely otherwise whatever. And I have to actually disagree when he goes, and I don't even gotta make no goddamn sense. I just did a whole song and I didn't say shit, because I actually think he managed to say a lot by accident, making a lot of censorship political points completely by accident. I mean, the chorus is fucking dumb, but it's a deliberately oh, I'm gonna make fun of autistic people because that's gonna obviously piss you off. See how easy you're all triggered? That's what I think he's trying to do with this. Whereas it turned out life was that triggered, and this turned out to be really bad. And I wonder if, of all the paths that it went, are we taking the right path with our censorship approaches now, knowing that a tweet from 12 years ago can get you fired from hosting the Oscars or whatever. Or whatever. I'm just saying. Either way, the beat is one of the worst Dr. Dre beats I think I've ever really heard. And I don't know. The song's kind of whack. It's offensive for the sake of being offensive, but kind of on the tail end of pushing censorship norms. This isn't Criminal, where it's a clearly pointed thing. This just feels like a looser, airier version of some of his better versions of this song. So I gave it a 4 because it does make some interesting points, but fuck is the delivery weird.
Yeah. It is definitely a weird song, and I find all of it, and I find the hook is a little bit odd too. I just didn't really like this one very much. And I kind of get what he's saying, and I think that he's kind of questioning who he is and who he was and how he kind of gets back to that place. I think he obviously is having some issues right now dealing with who he is and everything else. And he's kind of aware that he's not really making sense and in his song, and it's not really saying anything. And I don't know. For me, I was just kind of why? Well, why would you include it then? Why? Anyways,
honestly, I think it's because he had to fill 4 slots, or the album was due on this date, and etc. etc.
I don't know. I didn't really like it, and it didn't work again in today's time. I just didn't quite get it, so I gave it a 3 on 5.
All right, the next one is again about Benzino. Let's talk about the big weenie.
An experiment of the sorts. I'm going to have to ask you to bear with me for a moment. Now,
This hook is a lot better than the hook on Rain Man. We didn't even talk about the hook on Rain Man, but it's like, I don't love my head, or whatever. I forgot my name. It
I
was
lost
kinda
my
lame.
legs.
Just kind of lame. It was like, whatever. It was flat. Didn't really have life. Meanwhile, this hook, I gotta give it credit. It's stupid and it's silly, but it really hits for the overall tone, and it fits this song. And I feel like this is one you're gonna love or you're gonna hate, and there's not a lot of in between on this one, because you either really like what he's doing here or you don't. But as is the case with Rain Man, as is the case with Puke, this is one of those songs that was recorded right at the end when he was kind of faded and just trying to goof off, or whatever, as he put it. Those were his words, goof off. Anyway, how do you feel about Big Weenie?
So this goes back to like the beef with Benzino, and he obviously like wrote some shit about Eminem, and so he's basically calling him out, and also I think calling other people out at the same time, but obviously more specifically to Benzino, for having written, shitty or mean or false or presumptuous things about him, and for him also I think trying to be a rapper, if I'm not mistaken, but like
Well,
not
he is a rapper, but
right. Yeah, and like, but he says that he's not as good as Eminem, and he's just jealous of him, and like that's why he did all this, and he's just a big meanie. And I just thought that was like, it was interesting. Again, kind of juvenile, but like it definitely is probably the nicest thing that he could say about him, in terms of what's like allowed, I guess, and being a big meanie. Like, it just sounds like childish, but it's good. I mean, and like it has good rhymes. The song is good, but I do find it is again sort of dated just because it's related to like a beef that was happening at the time. And I also thought it was funny that he said if you say mean things that your penis will shrink. So if you're a mean person, then your penis is only going to get smaller and smaller. And so anyways, I thought it was like a good song. It wasn't the best, but it was, entertaining. I gave it a 4 on 5.
Yeah, it starts off and it's like, we're going to start and we're going to do an experiment. But wait, before we get to that, we're going to talk about a bunch of random ass shit for a minute. Kind of relax your mind, get ready, here's the state. And then it's shit like, now, why did they just make yoo-hoo, pippity caca poo poo? Psych, I'm kidding. I wanted to see if you're still listening. And I'm like, oh boy. Okay, now I need your undivided attention. Sir, I have a question. Why do I always sense this undeniable tension? And I'm like, he's not really saying a lot, but he's doing it well. That's kind of how I felt about a lot of this. All right, now I just flubbed a line. I was going to say something extremely important, but I forgot who or what it was. I fucked up. Psych, I'm kidding again, you idiot. No, I didn't. That's just what you wanted to hear from me, isn't that I fucked up, ain't it? And again, it's just kind of calling it out Benzino and the media in general. Like, hey, look, I fucked up my shit. Haha, no, I did it on purpose, but you were waiting for it, weren't you? You fucking assholes. You're all a bunch of big weenies. And then that third verse. All right. Now we're going to conduct that experiment we were just talking about earlier, just to see what a frog looks like when it takes 2 hits of ecstasy, because that's exactly what your eyes look like. Want to check to see? Here's a mirror. Notice the resemblance here? Wait, let me put these sunglasses on. Now look in the mirror. How about now? What do you have in common? You're both green with envy and look like idiots with sunglasses on them. I was like, it was really convoluted. It took a lot of bars to drill that home.
Yeah.
But I kind of laughed when he brought that up. And it's just the whole point of, yeah, you look fucking stupid with all of what you're saying. And yeah, I mean, as far as diss songs go, this doesn't change anything in the scheme of stuff. It may not have been as wisest, but he does point out that you, in general, sound as ridiculous as I do rapping about weenies. So he's self-aware enough to know how fucking dumb the point of this song is, but as much as I don't want to enjoy listening to this, I actually kind of do a bit. So the content is completely lacking, and I can't say this is the most talented song in history, but it's still pretty good, and I give it a 4.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Check
at
out
with.
M Calls Paul.
With the man in the mirror and telling to beat it because I won't stop till I get enough. Do you remember?
So Eminem has like that voice shit, like when you have
voice fucker-upper.
the hole in your throat from smoking, and he's doing that effect. and he's like, oh, I got your call. And then he does a whole bunch of Michael Jackson shit. Like, the way you make me feel with these calls, you should really take a look at the man in the mirror and tell him to beat it because I won't stop till I get enough. And the
Those
rest
are all Michael Jackson songs.
and then the rest of the song is that. And, oh, by the way, no, I don't have a new gun. And then the gun falls and the bullets fall out. And he's like, oh, damn it. And that's how it ends. I thought it was pretty bad. I didn't enjoy it. I thought it was a little creative because he does do the Eminem, all the Michael Jackson things. But otherwise, it's just like, wow, that is not that enjoyable to listen to all this time later. I go to 3. I mean, it has some elements to it that are cool, but mostly it just detracts.
Yeah. I gave this a 3.5. I mean, I thought it was Paul at the end who heard like the gun fall, and he said like, kind of like, oh shit or whatever, like he was gonna have to deal with him and that it was a lie. But I like as if we're listening to Paul listen to these.
See, I took it like as Eminem had his voice modulator thing in front of the phone, and then as the gun, he's like, ah shit, and because he moved away from talking in front of the voice modulator, like.
Maybe. I don't know. But I mean, it was fine. I did find it kind of jarring, with the voice fucker-upper thingamajig. I mean, but it was fun, and he's obviously just like, fucking around and doing whatever. But, yeah. And I guess Paul must be used to like this kind of ridiculous behavior from him because, yeah, he probably does this all the time. But yeah, I gave it a 3.5.
All right. Well, the next one's at least a good song. It's called Just Lose It.
You may have heard of it.
Good God, dip, do a little slide. Bend down, touch your toes, and just glide up the center of the dance floor.
This was a good single to follow up Eminem show. Just with the Guess Who's Back callback, and then it just, all right, stop. Pajama time. And you know that Michael Jackson's relevant in the news at this point and shit. You know it's gonna get weird. And it does. Come here, little kitties. I'm my lap. Guess who's back with a brand new rap? And I don't mean rap as in a new case of child molestation accusation. And that's when I learned who Pee Wee Herman was, because I had to go figure out what that fucking sound was. Anyway, it's just goofy. I think highlights of this track are absolutely nobody's when he's like TP from your bunghole, and it's cool if you let one go. Nobody's gonna know who'd hear it. Give a little boop boop. It's okay. And then that was my fart noise. And the CD skipped, and everyone heard you let one rip. And then Eminem does his really weird shit, like, now I'm going to make you dance, it's your chance. Yeah, boy, shake that ass. Whoops, I mean, girl, go, girl, you know you're my world. And then he's just like, okay, he's on goofy-ass mode, eh?
Yep.
And then there's the little singy part where he's talking about how he's running naked down the highway, just yelling, I don't know, lady, touch my body, or whatever. He's going, so I don't think that's there.
This is the part where the rap breaks down.
That comes later on. And then the whole second verse, he hits on some girl, and it's just Dre. And he's like, beer goggles, blood, and then...
Which is another thing you're kind of like, so what's going on with them?
Yeah, and then it's Tuesday, he's locked up, he's in jail, he doesn't know what happened, so he blacked out, etc. But then, literally the third verse, I think, is what makes this song be so fucking awesome. Is because this is the part where the rap breaks down. It gets real intense, so it makes the sound. Everything looks like it's 8 Mile Now. The beat comes back and everybody lose themselves, and then it just gets silly again. But it is like kind of almost... This whole song is parodying himself.
Yeah.
He's making a satire piece of an Eminem song. And I think that is what really makes Just Lose It kind of fucking brilliant, is that as much as you want to take shots, it takes a really I believe he was in a more comfortable place in life as he made this one because it's so well done. Mm-hmm. But it comes up. But then when snap back to reality, look at Speed Rabbit, you sign me up to battle, I'm a grown man. And then chubba 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 chubby, I don't have any lines to go right there, so chubba Teletubby, fellas, what? Grab your left nut, make your right one jealous. And then everyone's like, what? It was just, it's so goofy. And then he just calls out all the girls, and he's just running them, and he's like, I can go squeeze all the butts and shit, and all girls, no matter what you look like. Eminem's down. And it's not the creepiest song on this album, but it's up there with creepy elements coming in here. I get it as a 4.75 because I've listened to it forever, and it's one of those ones that I really like, and I still kind of know it by heart and shit. But it's not a 5 because when you really stop to think about parts of this song, you're like, that's a little weird.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I also gave this song a 4.75 because it is entertaining. It's good. It's catchy. It's definitely one that's stuck with you, and maybe just because of I don't know. Did this play on the radio? It must have.
Absolutely. This was a huge single.
Yeah, I mean, like, this was, like, it was pretty popular at the time. But I feel like this is, like, a 12-year-old boy's dream song. Like, I feel like it's just like the rah, 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 rah. Like, I remember, like, so many fucking obnoxious boys doing this all the time, and I would just be like, shut up. It's just like, it's like that. It's a little bit childish, but it's fun, and it was a hit, and it's catchy.
It's like,
And it's slow enough for people to sing along to. I think that was, like, an important thing to mention as well, because not all of his songs you can sing along to, but it is pretty, like, he makes it like a little bit more average that everybody can kind of get it. Yeah, that's it. 4.75. It's a hit.
I mean, it feels a little bit like Without Me light, only he really does go in on Michael Jackson, which I guess is fair. There's nothing to stop him from that. But yeah, I don't know. From the Drunken Escapades to all of it, I have to give him credit for how many styles he employs in this song.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's part of where I'm saying, like, this sounds more polished, because you'll notice that the first few songs before the darkness starts on this album, okay, Evil Deeds excluded, are really, like, strong. I feel well thought out, like he took the time to do the normal Eminem thing. And then we just had the previous 3 tracks plus the Paul skits, and all of that felt like rushed and just not really well thought out. And then you get to Just Lose It, and this, again, feels like a well thought out, well written, like put together song.
Like, he knew that this is going to be like one of the money makers.
I'm like, it was really just over the top. And again, I think he's parodying himself, and I think he does it perfectly. And I really, really enjoyed that. Anyway, there's one more absolute trash song from the dark periods on this album. So why don't we talk about Triumph the Wonder Dog? I mean, Ass Like That.
I am a mere puppet, I can get away with anything I say, and you will love it.
This was a single with a music video.
Yep.
And Triumph was there. I mean,
this is another 12-year-old boy's dream song. This is another stupid kind of song.
Let's give him some props. Mr. Officer, I'm already on my knees. I can't get to the ground any further. It's impossible for me, and do not treat me like a murderer. I just like to pee. Yes, I make R&B. I sing song. I go ringa, chant, whatever. Psych, I joke. I keyed. I offend. I'm sorry. Please forgive, for I am Triumph the Puppet Dog. I'm a mere puppet. I can get away with anything I say, and you'll love it. And I kind of think that's like all, as much as it is talking about Triumph and the idea of how if you have this little puppet, you can be an asshole and get away. I also think it's about maybe R. Kelly in general, and how if you're a puppet to a system, you can do whatever you want. And if you're really talented and you're really funny, or you sing like excellently, you can say what you want and nobody's going to care. Because Triumph the Puppet Dog, if I'm not, I'm a little too young for Triumph.
I remember him, but I also remember like Ed the Sock, like he was like my kind of guy. Like I watched him.
But they
a lot
were like,
more.
Their whole shtick was, I'm gonna go be an asshole on camera because I'm a puppet, and what, you're gonna get
But
mad
that's
at a
like the
puppet?
same thing for like these kind of edgy like ventriloquists and stuff like that. It's the same sort of thing. And
But
like,
it's also the same thing for R. Kelly peeing on a girl being a talented singer.
yeah.
And I kind of wasn't expecting to get such a deep, profound R. Kelly bashing out of this album at this time. And I do think that he's really actually trying to make a bigger satirical point here in his goofiness, but really then misses the mark as soon as he gets into the second verse, where he's like, Mary-Kate and Ashley used to be so wholesome. Now they're getting older. They're starting to grow bum-bums. I go to the movies, sit down with my popcorn. Police saying freeze. Da-doing, doing, doing. Like, it's just the whole song is this, man. The whole song is him basically pretending to be like a pedophile-ish type dude getting into weird sex positions, man. I'm like...
Well, I think it's saying that exactly kind of what you had said, I guess, is that you know, you can kind of get away with things. And I don't think it's just R. Kelly. I think he's also talking about Michael Jackson
I was
as
just
well.
thinking about it. Recently, there was the Danielle Bregoli girl that got famous, and I remember people commenting on, I looked her up. I looked up to see how hot she was. And I bet if she had a sex tape, people would be Googling that, even though it's child porn. Right? And I mean, that's where I think he's not just commenting on... Maybe I don't know if he's trying to solely be funny here. I think he is commenting on how creepy a lot of this shit is. Like, you know, how that 17-year-old celebrity were all like, look at Britney Spears. She was 16 and sexualized, and everyone was totally fine with that
Well, he also says
shit.
like, you know, maybe next year he'll be turned on by who is it that he uses?
I don't know, JoJo.
Hilary Duff.
And then he has
talks about Hilary Duff.
JoJo here, who was 12 or whatever at the time. I don't know.
But they're also sexualized. Like, these girls are, like, made to be more sexy to sell more albums and whatever else. So it is sort of a weird kind of warped thing. And then, like, when we have people, like, finding them sexy, it's like, well, this is what society wants them to look like and to attract. So it is kind of, it is a weird position to be in, I guess.
All I have to say, his delivery, and I had to really reach to find the point, I feel. I don't think he delivered the point excellently, but I do think he was trying to make an interesting point with this song. Ish. I don't know. I give it a 2.
Oh, wow.
It's really bad to me. I've never liked this from the first time I heard it. I think that the only redeeming quality is the point he's trying to make. The accent is trash, and he went on to overkill accents on fucking the next album. Like, the overall feel of this is just... I don't know who thought this was funny once upon a time, but this song always just made me feel weird. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the fact that him rapping about kids like that makes me feel weird is the point. And that the people who thought it was funny, there's something up with that shit. Maybe. I don't really know. It's just a weird one to me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. This one, I think, was obviously, again, like, very relevant to, like, kind of what was going on in 2004, like, being, like, in America and, like, what was, you know, the issues that were going on. And it is very, like, Arabic in style, an Arab kind of feeling, like, the accent that he's doing, the sounds that he's doing is kind of like an Asian, Arabic kind of feeling. Like, that's kind of, like, what he's kind of making fun of, because that was the cool thing to do then, because fuck, you know, all these, like, Arab places or whatever. Like, that was what was going on, and it was totally cool. So, but it's definitely racist if you consider it in, like, today's, like, PC world. So it just wouldn't work. So it just kind of was relevant to the time. So that's why I don't think it necessarily translates.
I just think it's a bad song.
Yeah. And, they just wouldn't know the references. And, you know, he talks about, like, using Triumph, the dog, and how he can get away with it. So what you said, basically. And, like, how people they're judging, like, the dog, but there's a person attached to it. And, like, they need to be more aware that it's the person, it's not the dog that's saying it. And I think that was also, like, a thing that South Park did, you know, with, like, not with Mr. Hanky, but with Mr. Hand, right? Wasn't it? Mr. Garrison's puppet that he had for a while.
Right, yeah.
So, like, you know, is that sort of, like, weird joke? Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I just find it feels a little bit nostalgic. Like, this song was definitely one that I listened to. Like, I think that's why I enjoy it more than I should. But I'm not sure if people listening to it for the first time would enjoy this at all. So I give this a 4 on 5, but it's more than I probably should just because of nostalgic value.
Yeah. All right. Why don't we spend some time talking about the rest of the Shady roster?
Okay.
That you chill with all that fire. Get your desire when I retire.
We're back to the real album. And I saw a lot of comments saying, if the 4 songs had been there, how would you feel about Encore now? And when I listened to Spend Some Time after all of that, I'm like, wow, this is a really fucking good song. Because it goes back to that well thought out, well calculated, like, this song has a point. This is, like, evidently a period where Kim maybe isn't the focus. And they're talking about women that they've encountered, or at least 50 Cent is apparently completely fictional, because it's the same Tanya girl he kidnaps on the next album.
Okay.
But Obie Trice talks about some girl that, you know, just kind of, he bangs and whatnot. And then, yeah, he just kind of looking for her. And I feel like in the essence of it is that they all go from wanting to smash quietly to slowly this person means more to them, and they actually end up wanting to spend some time with that person. And then that's where the hook kind of flows in with Dina Ray. And Dina Ray's last appearance before Eminem abandons her for everybody else. And she wrote some diss songs to Eminem and wasn't very thrilled or happy. But now in current 2018, I looked this up actually. I was curious what happened to Dina Ray. She would work with him, but he doesn't give a shit about her, is what I understand. The rumor is that M and Dina fucked, and then he had to get rid of her when Kim came back. That's the rumor that I found. And then Eminem is describing like some person, and there's some suspicion that he dated somebody for a little bit, and he just kind of describes like some person like where he treated her really poorly at first and tried to create distance, but over time it's like she started treating him different, and this kind of hooked him, and he got really into it, and it was all really great. And then it just kind of ends up not really being good because she ends up cheating on him anyway and making it all real bad at the end of it. And you just feel like the story and the intensity, and this is like, where the fuck has this Eminem been for like the while? Like, this is in like his history of girl songs, like this is really rare. It's like it's not about Kim. It's about somebody else, but it feels like it's about somebody specific that he had, and I thought that was a really cool tale. And it's not such the same twisted psycho tales like he's doing now. It sounds like, man, you played me, and I really wish that you hadn't done that. And then Stat Quo's verse is fine. Normally he's like, fuck a bitch, and then whatever. His verse is okay. I enjoyed listening to it. I don't have a lot to say, but 50 Cent's verse is so fucking strong to me. Again, it's my favorite on this. Both the songs, these two songs we've had 50 so far, 50 has stolen it from me. And I just like, M introduced this 50, this is Tanya, this is 50. Then he's just like, he looks at her, he's like, your lips, they should be on my dick, sucking it, that's a really good thing. And then pointing out how all these women just kind of say the same shit to him, and that's not interesting. And it's just like, okay, whatever, you're kind of boring. And I like how each of them have their different attitudes based off of how the different women reacted. And it's almost like how they all reacted to the same kind of girl, and whatever. It's kind of a little bit how I took it. Like, this is all their take on maybe the same individual person even, or the same type of person that they've encountered. Either way, I thought that the beat was really, really, really cool. That is a good hook. Gina Ray and Eminem sound absolutely phenomenal together on that chorus to me. It overall flows so, it's a really strong song, and Obie Trice, formerly of Shady Records, and Stat Quo, formerly of Shady Records, gets some shine on an Eminem album, which is not something we see him doing in the current Eminem albums with his roster, so it's really cool to see Eminem being like that back in the day, even though neither of those guys stayed with them forever. Anyway, I give this a 4.5. I think it's really strong, and it's to me like it's cool. It's like, oh shit, hey, Eminem's good.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely like they're all kind of like saying their little bit about like how they've been stupid in love and how like things have happened, and kind of just talking about the girls that they have encountered. And for me, when I was listening to like this one about or Eminem's kind of verse, I thought it like something at the end made me think it was Kim that he's talking about throughout this entire part. But and that's when he goes to like to almost kill them. And I know that that's what he did with Kim, so that's why I thought it was the same. That's why I thought it was her. So I don't know if it is or isn't.
Well, I mean, at the very beginning, he's like, I almost went as far as introducing you to my daughters.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess not.
But at
like,
the same time, he's still pulling up and seeing that this girl's doing the same type of shit that made him want to kill
that's
Kim.
true. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that clears it up. My bad. So yeah, I mean, and it's something we've kind of heard before, and I think that it's interesting that he's realizing that he's kind of making the same mistakes over and over again. And I think that's what like 50 he's kind of like realizing he's just going through like these same girls that say the same lines, that say this, that spit the same stuff. They're all just like these like hoes or whatever, blah 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 blah. So I think that he's just kind of realizing that like maybe it's not, or maybe I'm taking from it that they should be realizing that maybe it's not the girls, that it's their issue, that they need to like, that they keep encountering these kind of girls. So I thought it was interesting. Not my favorite on the album, but it was good. I give it a 4 on 5.
All right, let's talk about the sappiest of good songs. Debatably Eminem's least offensive song ever.
All right.
Mockingbird.
Together through it, we gon' do it. Laney uncle's crazy, ain't he? Yeah, but he loves you, girl, and you better know it.
I mean, it's a 5. I mean, how else could it be anything else? It's like, it's just so heartfelt, man. It's like Haley's song part 2, but unlike anything else, he just fucking delivers and even one-ups what he did on Haley's song here, right? Just from the beginning, like, Haley, I know you miss your mom, and I know you miss your dad when I'm gone. That's some foreshadowing, because When I'm Gone comes out on Curtain's Call in the next album. The Greatest Hits album. When I'm gone, but I'm trying to give you the life that I never had. I can see you're sad, even when you smile, even when you laugh. I can see it in your eyes, deep inside you want to cry. And you're like, wow, this is like, Eminem and in the height of his fame really trying to like write a song to his family, and I don't know if he's gotten custody at this point or he's in the middle of dealing with all sorts of shit, and the family's in the middle of complete chaos, and like he's recognizing the overall impact of his career on his children, and he's bringing it there, and this whole song is just like an apology, like I'm gonna be there for you. Like I've made whatever in the past, I'm dedicating it to you now. Like, now hush little baby, don't you cry, everything's gonna be all right. Stiffen that upper lip up, little lady, I told you, daddy's here to hold you through the night, even though mama's not here, even though things are crazy. Like, for now, at least in this moment, I'm here for you. And then honestly, the story when Kim like gave the Christmas presents when they got robbed and everything, and how they saved face, and it's almost like, you know what, whatever you heard, your mom is a good mom and you should love her. And just to see him put his whole like pride and ego aside to like go ahead and just be a good father. And then you have like the little end with like playing up on the nursery rhyme. And if daddy's gonna buy you a Mockingbird, I'm gonna give you the world. And then if it doesn't sing, he's gonna break that fucking jeweler's neck because he's still shady. And that's the only part of it where he even gets a little bit whatever. But even then, it's because somebody didn't give something to his little fucking girl. And I mean, the melody and the flow on this, the beat is just enthralling. Like, it just hooks you in like this deep sentimental feel, and the sincerity in his voice is real, and the love in his voice is so real. And it's not like Haley's song where he's overwhelmed and his daughter's grounding him. Now it's more like he's pouring his whole fucking heart and soul into just like this song, and it shows so much. And I don't know, man. I remember when this came out, this became like everybody's favorite song. The way Cleaning Out Your Closet became everybody's favorite song. But this was like the one that really took over for Encore, from what I can remember. To me, it's really beautiful. It's a 5 on 5. I mean, how do you not listen to this and just smile at him and his relationship and what he's trying to do, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think that he's obviously a good father, and this song is obviously destined for like his daughter's ears. And I think it's nice that he also talks about Lainey, and that's Elena. That's his. That's another. It's another girl. It's not his stepdaughter. It's somebody else's daughter that he took custody of. That was, I guess, probably involved. Someone named Dawn, and I can't remember who she is exactly. But anyways, so he's got custody of these girls, and it's just nice that he's just like talks about her just as much. I think he obviously has more. It's more destined for Haley, but it definitely like talks about like how this is also for Lainey, and that she needs to hear this too, and that he loves her and everything else.
Like, it's almost like acknowledging, hey, look, we're actually this little family. You know, this is what's happening here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sad song because he's addressing a lot of issues and difficulties that he's kind of encountered because of who he is and everything. But it's kind of just like a reminder that he'll do everything for his girls. And that's pretty much it. I gave it a 4.75.
Yeah, I mean, it's really strong and whatever. And then it flows pretty well, actually, into the next song thematically, which is kind of more about Kim, because he's crazy in love.
In a sec, we fuck like two jackrabbits, and maybe that's a bad habit, cause the next day we're right back.
I remember being young, and this one always stood out to me because that beat is the best beat on the album to me. The Crazy in Love sampled in, the really fast drum patterns, everything about this beat, it just feels so intense and so crazy and shit. But then, the song's pretty distinct for one other reason. Eminem basically raps the entire thing. Mm-hmm. He uses his singing voice the entire way through the verse, the entire way through everything. I like it. This is not me shitting on that. I really do think this is a cool song for that, but it's distinct and worth pointing out because you never get the whole song like that. You know what I mean?
I guess so.
But what did you think about it?
I mean, I liked the feature of like Heart's Crazy on You song. I thought that was kind of cool. But this is definitely another song about Kim and how like volatile their relationship was. And, obviously at this point he was still kind of obsessed with her. And like, I just feel like even at that point and still today, like now, I think I was like over like all of this like dramatic relationship. Like I'm just like, get over it. It's been like album after album like about the same girl. Like just get over
Sound
it.
like Chris.
And it's interesting, but for me, like it was just an over discussed topic. I gave this a 3.75.
I mean, I look at it like I don't think I could ever get bored from authentic sounding shit. Because, I mean, Love the Way You Lie could be interpreted as the same way, but it's definitely not a done to death topic. Or if you have Spacebound, or when he does, or 25 to Life, which is sort of more about hip hop.
Yeah.
Sorry about that one. But in general, if he can do it fresh and he can make it sound interesting, then I'm down. And I think he pulled that off right here. Like, they say that every man's growing up to marry as a mother, which would explain why you're such a motherfucking bitch, but I stayed till I stick it out with you, even though I just hit you today because you deserve it. You hit me first and provoked me to choke you just because I came home last night, crawled in bed, and I woke you. So he wakes her up, she hits him, he hits her, violence, blah, blah, blah. From what I understand, he didn't actually hit her. It was a lot of just describing it, or maybe they did. I don't actually know. I think I've actually also heard stories where they may have gotten a little more physical than whatever. But
yeah, I mean, I think that they were just intense. I think that
it's just really interesting to hear anybody brag about hitting his woman so callously in rap songs the way Eminem does. And he has not gotten away with it. He's been accused of misogyny for like years, but why is everyone okay with, I'm just like wondering forever, why have we always been okay with like Eminem being allowed to beat a woman in a relationship in a song, and that's just, because it's whatever.
I think it's because it's more fiction.
I guess, but what if it happens, Like what if that's reality? That's all I'm trying to say. Then is it the same thing? And then you start asking yourself all those conversations, like, is it okay to listen to John Lennon knowing he beat his wives before Yoko? I'm just throwing it out there. So I'm not trying to, like, imply my moral judgment on anybody. I just don't know why you'd want to brag about that in your Crazy in Love song. It seems like a weird thing to ever want to brag about. And he did it again on Kamikaze, so it wasn't, like, limited to this year. He brags, I believe, or it was on Revival, one of those two albums. He again implies he hits women with his storytelling. So I don't know. It's just a weird thing to keep bringing up, in the same way it's a weird thing to ask if it's gay to stick your dick in another man's ass. And if you think about it, it's just a weird thing. Either way, I think the overall flow and the intensity and the way he spits it makes it stand out. It's really interesting to me. I've always kind of really dug it, so I gave it a 4.5.
All right. Well, let's check out One Shot, Two Shot.
That's the sound of the Glock. Even DJ House, you fucked around and got shot.
So yeah, this one is the D12 jam, where they're at a club and it gets shot up by guys in a black Mitsubishi.
Yep.
What I really love about this song is that everybody's verse happens at the same time. So it's almost like one of those shows where it really is about 6 minutes of actual things you see happening, but you see it from 5 different perspectives to get the complete picture.
Yeah.
And you can hear it from like Bizarre's like, I'm running, fuck my wife, I'm trying to run and save my motherfucking life.
They're like, is that bizarre? Like,
it's like, I've never seen him run so fast in my life. And you just really get this like whole sense of completion to it as it rolls through. Swift and Con Artists do their little part where they're kind of just describing what's going on. Yo, should I get my gun? Who the fuck was it? Oh, it's the same guys you're after? Oh, shit. And it seems like everything really just ties the story together. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I don't want to go too much into it. It's a pretty fun, everybody gets shot up, craziness happens, all at a D12 show. Oh, no, how could this go on? Those guys were out to get us type thing. And I'm not trying to diminish this song at all. I really fucking enjoy it. I think it's got a fun little hook, like the 1 shot, 2 shot, red fish, blue fish, 1 fish, 2. That's what I picture Dr. Seuss with it.
Yeah.
It's silly. It's got a really okay beat. I do enjoy when he goes, I'm posted up at the bar having a mazel tov. Bullet whizzed by my right ear, damn near shot it off. Thank God I'm alive. I gotta find Denon. Where the fuck is Vaughn? He's usually tucks one on him. And then he does the bizarre. Wait a second, I've never seen him run so fast before. Mm-hmm. Noticeable is that I think Proof is not on this song, which, whatever. Otherwise, yeah, I like it. I give it a 4.35. I always felt it was one of the sillier, not as great D12 songs, and it feels a little weird with Like Toy Soldiers on the same album, but
I guess so.
But at the same time, I enjoy the dramatic telling here, and I don't want to take away from this art piece. It wasn't my favorite, but I really enjoy it.
Well, it was my favorite. Actually, I think this is my favorite song on the album. This is definitely like a 5 on 5 for me. I was like, this is so much fun. I was like, this is a good song. And what do we have? We've got gun noises in the beat, which is like a standard for being a good song for me. So I definitely enjoyed it. I thought the beat was really sick. I definitely enjoyed the gun sound incorporated. It is sort of like just like a fun, goofy song about like a shootout, but it's like it's well told, and I guess like the shootout is like kind of like a gang revenge or something that's going on. Like I wasn't really sure what the story was, but it was fun to have like the whole gang there. They're just like a fun group
Minus
of guys.
Proof, my favorite that isn't Eminem in that. It was noticeable to me that Proof was gone. Apparently Proof at the time was just disinterested in mainstream rap and trying to have a little space when they made this song, so he ended up not being on it.
Yeah, I mean, as much as like D12 doesn't always get like the best spotlight, I guess, kind of just being like Eminem's band, right? So I thought this song was a standout, and I definitely I added it to like my favorite playlist right away. I am looking forward to enjoying this song a whole bunch.
It was not that good for me, but it must be said that it's really noticeable that Proof's not here, knowing that 2 years later in a club that is essentially the song plays out 2 years later and Proof's the one that gets clipped, right? And that's always been like a kind of wow, that's fucked up type thing when you really, really think about it. Anyway, the final thought, Skit, is not the final thoughts on this album.
Well, let's check it out anyways.
Yeah, you hear him looking at papers. He gives a little sigh. He's ruffling through. You hear the little wheelie, squeaky things, like he's kind of still backstage, and he's about to go out for the actual encore because the concert's done, and you get the sense of pacing considering what the next song is. But yeah, it's got a little bit of a nice touch because it ties it back into the intro, which has like been a long forgotten concept at this point.
Yep.
But we do get that brought back in, and yeah, especially because we know off of when M calls Paul that we have a special finale coming that we'll find out about. So I gave it a 4.25 because I do think it's well placed for what it is, but it doesn't do a lot. It's just a good context setter before the last song.
Yeah, I agree. There's really not much to it. It's just kind of him like walking backstage and kind of taking a break and then going onto the stage. So I gave it a 4 on 5.
Well, let's talk about the last one. Encore / Curtains Down.
Again, you a fad, that means it's something that we already had. But once you're gone, you don't.
Go, Bonnie.
I'm just gonna say that it sounds weird to hear 50 Cent sing. I don't know. There's something about that. I was like, oh, okay.
50 Cent doing what?
The way he was singing, like I just thought it was just kind of like weird to hear him sing with Eminem. Like I just find their voices just so opposite. They don't really work well together. But anyways, see again, like for me, I feel like 50 is just like a weird mix for Eminem. Like it just doesn't work. Like they could be buddies, but maybe, I don't know, something about their sounds, they sound difficult or not. They just sound different together. I like Dre's verse. I like that very much. And it's a cool beat. And they basically just want to throw a party and have a good time. And this is sort of like their like attempted club hit. Wow, I can't say that. Club hit. So I think it's good, but I don't think it makes it into a club. Like this isn't necessarily something I would hear in a club. They don't want to leave without saying goodbye, and I was wondering if that was maybe like in reference to people dying before their time. I was thinking because at the end like everybody gets shot up, and that's kind of like how the song ends. And then at the end of like the little last bit is sort of like Eminem calling Paul back to like answer like everything that.
Well, yeah, sorry. Just as far as him saying goodbye, I remember at the time there were rumors going around. Is this the end? Is he going to retire?
Oh, right, yeah.
So, this is kind of like saying, no, I still got my last hurrah here. Even before Encore, I think I remember there were rumors that, things weren't going well, etc. So I feel like that was it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I remember that. And then at the end, after he's using like the voice fucker-upper thing that he used in like the calls to Paul, or the call to Paul, that he says like, ha ha ha, like I'll see you in hell fuckers. And like that's kind of like the outro.
Yeah, it's M shooting up everybody in the crowd who, as you know from the intro or the cover, is all the media people and all this stuff. So if you look at who the Encore is for, the Eminem show is for the fans, but Encore, in a sense, is for all the critics and the judges and the people coming at him.
Yeah.
But for me, this was just kind of like, well, we got to have the Dre song, got to put 50 on, they're all Titans, let's throw them all together. And this is when I realized I had a theory. I don't fully agree that M and 50 don't sound good together because Patiently Waiting is a masterpiece. But, like, at the same time, I don't feel like what M does with Dre and what M does with 50 works together.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Dre and 50 sound that good on the same song together. I feel like Dre's got that West Coast heavy laid back swag, and then 50's got that New York pimpin' like baller ass swag, and Eminem is versatile enough to go between them. But I feel like you're in the M and Dre vibe, and then all of a sudden it's like M and 50 vibe, and it's just two separate vibes that I find kind of weird, and they don't all mesh together in that regard. Still, I really do like this song. It reminds me a bit of like Say What You Say or whatever, and like they're coming in and they're coming back to like just be legends in the game and drop some shit and just back and forth bars.
I don't know.
Because, like, I mean, you have Dre coming in, and I really like when he's like, you a fad, that means you something that we already had, but once you're gone, you don't come back. Oof, because Dre's returning and he doesn't go away. And then Eminem's bouncing back and forth with him, and then 50 Cent comes in, and I kind of feel like where it really gets a little weird is when Dr. Dre says crunk, you will get it crunk, get it crunk, get it, and then it's like, okay. And 50 Cent says jump, you get on one foot and jump, and you're like, I mean, it's very like, it's really like a callback to a really origin of hip hop type thing. But so weird.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Dre is like, but critics say that Doc is soft, Doc is talk, Doc is all wash, knock it off. Who the fuck is Doc impressing? Doc is this, Doc is that. You get the rock impression because you must be on the cock of Doc, because Doc left you all guessing. And I like that because he is pointing out, who the fuck do I have to answer to? I'm Dre. I do what I want. If anything, y'all on my shit. And then 50 kind of pops in a little bit. I feel like he's barely on the song. He has a few lines, but this is it's almost like it was an M and Dre song, and 50's like, can I get on that? And then they had to let him because he was so hot. But it just felt like, on that regard, it was weird. But they flow through, and it's kind of like them establishing, we're here to stay. Detox is coming. It never came. In fact, it got scrapped. Aftermath and whatnot, and it just kind of left us all hopeful. I remember thinking, Detox isn't coming. Didn't end up coming. Look at that. But I still
Then he's trying to like convince Dre to do it.
I still gave it a 4.5. I think it's really strong, and it really is like a good song in terms of that flow of it. And if it wasn't for the outro mixed with 50 Cent's weird contributions, because he shouldn't have been there, it just kind of took away a bit, just a little glimpse of 50. I think it would be a much better way to end it. But it is a cool way to end the album, all things considered, and brings it down. So it's nice.
Yeah, I gave it a 4 on 5. I thought it was good, but not necessarily one that I would listen to again, but it sort of still kind of works.
All right. So that's the end of this album review, our little Encore Eminem experience. I give this project a 4.15. It has some really great moments on it, and most of the project is actually really consistent, and it's still less good. It would never be better than the previous 3 works, but at the same time, what he was going through in life and all of that, it's okay. But realizing that the 4 songs that really ruined this album were just throwaways that were added at the end while he was in a petty mood because somebody had fucked up his album launch, it helps me empathize with Encore just a little bit more, and it helps me kind of appreciate that. Like, it's worth remembering that as you listen to this project. But still, we've heard some really awful singing, which I believe probably led to the rise of auto-tune. We've heard some really weirdly missed inappropriate shit, only because the point he was trying to make is so not clear because nothing in life is really that obvious. I don't know. It just feels like the worst Eminem album. Although I haven't listened to Relapse in a while, and maybe that's the worst Eminem album, that might be up for contention, but it's between Encore and Relapse to me, and by grades, this is significantly lower than all the 4.6s I've been fucking given his other shit, so yeah, this is noticeably worse.
Yeah, there was something about listening to this that, like, by the end of it, like, you just kind of felt like, ugh, like, you were just like, it almost felt like a chore to listen to it again and a little bit exhausting. But I mean, it's still Eminem, so it's still like okay and everything. So I gave this a 3.87 on 5, so that's a 77%. So for me, it doesn't quite make the classic list, and I don't think that Eminem would necessarily disagree with me. I think that this is kind of like he knows that this is like his low point, and I think that it was his low point in terms of like what was going on in his life, the issues that were happening. The sort of.
I think his lowest points even came after this.
Yeah, I'm not saying that like it just like went away. I think that this was,
This was like on his descent to
Yes.
that low point.
Yeah, I think this is where he was having issues with the fame and with like the critics and with just like the people around him, and it was just like this crazy life that he had kind of just got himself into. So I mean, for me, it wasn't a classic. There's still some good songs on here for sure, but I mean, I feel like I'm not like alone in saying that this is probably his lowest album. But that's all I have to say.
Fair enough. So thank y'all for watching. It's really awesome to us that you would take the time to be with us and go through it, even though a few of you have requested this, wanted us to talk about this one. Thankfully, from my perspective, it's basically uphill till we get to MMLP2 and catch up on all his albums, which means we get to go through the whole series of recovery and relapse and good shit's to
The whole
come
drug
still.
thing.
But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this. Let us know what you thought of Encore, if you think we were fair, if you disagree with us. But when you're coming up with that opinion in the comments, can you let us know when you got into Eminem?
Yeah, and if you choose to go listen to this album and it's your first time ever listening to it, do you find like that you're feeling confused by what he's talking about just because so many things are like relevant to something that was like, a long time
But
ago?
I also imagine like if you started listening to Eminem after Encore's been out versus like for me where Encore came out and I had high expectations and was severely disappointed.
True.
Like that's a difference in my opinion. But special thanks to the patrons, Ismail Gadamsi, Chris Prado, Super Old School 1994, and Lindell Williams. They all support what we do. They want to see us grow. And if you want to join them over there, you can join the request pool, where once a month we do an album from Patreon. Plus, when you sign up the following month, we do a whole extra one that's just whatever album you want to see us review, regardless to what it is, no matter what. You also get access to content early, and as time goes on, we'll flush that out more. If you're not down for that, feel free to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, leave us those comments. We're small enough that I'll still talk to you. And I also dropped a project recently on Spotify and whatnot, so feel free to check the description of this video for that. And let me know what you think. Just, talk to us. Anyway, thank y'all, and we'll be back next week with a rapper that Eminem thinks is really good. Peace.
Bye, guys.